The morning mist clung to the grounds of Kensington Palace like a shroud of secrecy. Detective Inspector Marcus Thompson adjusted his earpiece and scanned the perimeter with trained eyes that had seen too much in his 15 years of royal protection service. At 42, Marcus had earned the trust of the royal family through unwavering loyalty and an almost supernatural ability to sense danger before it materialized. Today felt different. There was an electricity in the air that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up, a sensation he had learned never to ignore during his time in military intelligence before joining the Royal Protection Unit. The Princess of Wales was scheduled for a private meeting with several charity representatives, a routine engagement that should have felt as familiar as breathing, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, waiting, planning. Kate emerged from the palace's side entrance, her warm smile immediately putting the waiting charity workers at ease. She moved with the practiced grace that had made her one of the most beloved members of the royal family, but Marcus noticed the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes briefly flickered toward the upper windows of the building across the courtyard. She felt it too. "Good morning, Inspector Thompson," Kate said softly as she passed him, her voice carrying that familiar note of gratitude that never failed to remind Marcus why he had dedicated his life to this work. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" "Indeed, Your Royal Highness," Marcus replied, falling into step beside her as they moved toward the waiting group. His eyes never stopped moving, cataloging faces, noting positions, calculating escape routes with the automatic precision of someone whose job was to think about the unthinkable. The meeting proceeded smoothly for the first hour. Kate listened intently as representatives from 3 different children's charities presented their latest initiatives, her genuine interest evident in the thoughtful questions she asked and the careful notes she took. Marcus positioned himself at the edge of the room, close enough to respond to any threat, but distant enough to allow for natural conversation. It was during the tea break that Marcus first noticed the anomaly. A woman in palace staff uniform appeared in the corridor outside the meeting room, but Marcus didn't recognize her face. In his years of service, he had memorized the features of every person with authorized access to the royal residences. This woman was new, or she didn't belong here. Marcus excused himself from the room and approached the woman, his hand instinctively moving closer to his concealed weapon. "Excuse me, miss. Could I see your identification, please?" The woman turned, and Marcus immediately recognized the intelligence in her eyes, the way she held herself with military bearing despite the domestic uniform. "Of course," she said smoothly, producing credentials that identified her as Sarah Mitchell, a new member of the housekeeping staff. The documents looked authentic, but something in the woman's demeanor set off every alarm bell in Marcus's head. He had spent years learning to read people, to detect the subtle signs of deception that most people missed. This woman was trained, professional, and definitely not a housekeeper. "Thank you, Miss Mitchell," Marcus said, returning the credentials while memorizing every detail. "I don't recall seeing you before. When did you start working here?" "Just last week," she replied, her smile perfectly calibrated to seem nervous but sincere. "Still getting used to everything. It's quite overwhelming working in a real palace." Marcus nodded and watched as she continued down the corridor, noting how she moved with the controlled gait of someone accustomed to surveillance work. As soon as she was out of sight, he activated his secure radio and contacted the personnel office to verify her employment status. The response came back within minutes and confirmed Marcus's suspicions. No Sarah Mitchell had been hired by the palace in the past month. Someone had inserted a professional operative into the building using forged credentials, and they had done it so smoothly that she had passed through multiple security checkpoints without raising any red flags. Marcus immediately elevated the security status and began coordinating with his team to locate the imposter. But as he searched the building, a more disturbing possibility began to form in his mind. What if this wasn't a random security breach? What if someone within the royal household had orchestrated this infiltration? His radio crackled with an urgent message from one of his colleagues. "Inspector Thompson, we need you in the East Wing immediately. We've discovered some irregularities in the computer systems." Marcus made his way quickly through the palace corridors, his mind racing through possibilities. Computer irregularities combined with an infiltrator suggested a coordinated intelligence operation. But who would target Kate specifically, and why? The computer technician, a young man named David who had been with the palace IT department for 3 years, looked pale and worried as Marcus approached. "Sir, someone has been accessing restricted files remotely. The intrusion was very sophisticated, designed to look like routine system maintenance, but I noticed some unusual activity patterns." "What kind of files?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Personal correspondence, private schedules, medical records, financial information, everything related to the Princess of Wales. Someone has been building a comprehensive profile of her activities, her habits, her vulnerabilities." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't a random security breach or even a typical intelligence-gathering operation. Someone was conducting a thorough investigation into every aspect of Kate's life, the kind of deep background research that preceded either blackmail or something much worse. "How long has this been going on?" Marcus asked. David's face grew even paler. "Based on the log files, at least 6 months. Whoever is doing this has been very patient, very methodical. They've been careful not to access too much information at once, spreading their activities across different times and systems to avoid detection." 6 months. Marcus's mind immediately went to the significant changes that had occurred in the royal family during that time frame. There had been discussions about modernizing certain royal protocols, debates about the future direction of the monarchy, and increasing tensions between different factions within the extended royal family. His radio buzzed again with another urgent message. "Inspector Thompson, the woman you reported has been spotted near the Queen Consort's private offices. She appears to be photographing documents." Marcus's blood ran cold. If his suspicions were correct, this wasn't just about gathering information on Kate. Someone was using that information to build a case against her, possibly to undermine her position within the royal family or to create leverage for political purposes. He immediately contacted his superior and requested permission to detain the suspect for questioning. But as he made his way toward the Queen Consort's offices, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into something much larger and more dangerous than a simple security breach. The corridors of the palace seemed to stretch endlessly as Marcus moved through them, his training keeping his movements calm and controlled despite the urgency of the situation. He had spent years protecting the royal family from external threats, but this felt different. This felt like betrayal from within. As he approached the Queen Consort's wing of the palace, Marcus saw 2 of his team members positioned at strategic points in the corridor. They gave him subtle hand signals indicating that the suspect was still in the area but had not been apprehended. Marcus activated his earpiece and spoke quietly to his team. "This is Thompson. Maintain visual contact but do not engage until I give the signal. We need to see what she's after and who she's working with." The response was immediate and professional. His team understood that sometimes the best way to stop a security threat was to let it play out long enough to identify all the players involved. Marcus positioned himself where he could observe the entrance to the Queen Consort's private study without being seen. After several tense minutes, the woman emerged, carrying a small digital camera and what appeared to be photocopies of several documents. Instead of heading toward an exit, she moved deeper into the palace, toward a section that housed the private apartments of senior royal family members. Marcus followed at a distance, his heart rate increasing as he realized that this operation was far more complex than he had initially suspected. The woman stopped at a door that Marcus recognized as leading to a private communication room, used by senior royals for confidential phone calls and video conferences. She produced what appeared to be an electronic device and held it against the lock mechanism. Within seconds, the door opened silently. Marcus had seen enough. This was no ordinary intruder. This woman had been provided with sophisticated equipment and detailed knowledge of the palace's security systems. Someone with high-level access had planned and facilitated this operation. He activated his radio and gave the signal for his team to move in. But as they surrounded the communication room, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Instead of immediately arresting the woman, he chose to follow protocol and alert his superiors about what they had discovered. The call he made would set in motion a series of events that would test every aspect of his loyalty and force him to choose between his duty to the institution he served and his commitment to protecting the people he had sworn to keep safe. As Marcus waited for instructions from his superiors, he couldn't help but think about Kate, still in her meeting with the charity representatives, unaware that someone had spent months gathering intelligence about her most private moments. The thought of her vulnerability, combined with the growing evidence of a conspiracy within the palace itself, strengthened his resolve to see this investigation through to its conclusion, regardless of where it might lead or what it might cost him personally. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the palace windows as Marcus prepared for what he suspected would be the most challenging assignment of his career. The woman in the communication room was just the beginning. Someone had orchestrated this operation with careful precision, and Marcus was determined to find out who was behind it and why they considered Kate such a significant threat that they were willing to risk everything to gather intelligence about her. The radio in his ear crackled with an incoming message from his superior, and Marcus knew that whatever happened next would determine not just the success of this investigation, but the future of everyone involved. The game of palace politics was about to become much more dangerous, and Marcus found himself at the center of a conspiracy that reached to the very heart of the royal family. As he prepared to receive his orders, Marcus made a silent promise to himself and to Kate. Whatever forces were working against her, whatever secrets they were trying to uncover or manufacture, he would stand between them and their target. His loyalty had been earned through years of service and mutual respect, and no amount of political pressure or institutional manipulation would shake his commitment to protecting the woman who had become not just his assignment, but someone he genuinely respected and admired. The woman in the communication room represented more than just a security breach. She was evidence of a systematic campaign against Kate, and Marcus was determined to discover who was behind it and why they considered her such a threat. The investigation was just beginning, and Marcus knew that before it was over, he would be forced to question everything he thought he knew about loyalty, duty, and the true nature of the institution he had devoted his life to serving. The palace walls that had once represented security and tradition now seemed to hide secrets and conspiracies, and Marcus realized that his greatest challenge would not be protecting Kate from external enemies, but from those who operated from within the very heart of the royal establishment itself. The secure conference room in the basement of Kensington Palace felt more like a bunker than a meeting space. Marcus sat across from his superior, Chief Inspector Williams, whose weathered face showed the strain of 30 years protecting the royal family. Between them lay printed copies of the documents recovered from the fake housekeeper, along with computer printouts showing the extent of the digital surveillance operation. "Inspector Thompson," Williams began, his voice carrying the weight of uncomfortable revelations, "what we're dealing with here goes far beyond a simple security breach. The woman we apprehended is Elena Volkov, a former Russian intelligence operative who has been working as a freelance contractor for the past 5 years. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Foreign intelligence involvement meant this situation had just escalated from a domestic security issue to a potential international incident. "Who hired her, sir?" Williams hesitated, glancing at the closed door before continuing. "That's where things get complicated. The money trail leads back to a series of shell companies, but our financial crimes unit has identified connections to accounts linked with certain members of the extended royal family." The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. Someone within the royal household had hired a foreign operative to conduct surveillance on Kate. The betrayal was so profound that he struggled to process it fully.
"The Queen Consort?" Marcus asked quietly, though he dreaded the answer. "We're not jumping to conclusions yet," Williams replied, but his tone suggested they both knew where the evidence was pointing.
However, the documents Volkov photographed were from Queen Consort Camilla's private correspondence files. She was specifically targeting information about potential scandals, financial irregularities, or any evidence of behavior that could be used to damage the Princess of Wales's reputation. Marcus stood and paced to the small window that looked out onto the palace courtyard. In the distance, he could see tourists gathering outside the gates, completely unaware of the drama unfolding within the walls they hoped to glimpse. The irony wasn't lost on him that the institution they revered was potentially being torn apart from within by jealousy and political maneuvering. "What's our next move?" Marcus asked, turning back to face Williams. "That's where your role becomes critical," Williams said, opening a thick file folder. "We need someone close to the Princess of Wales to monitor the situation and protect her from any immediate threats while we investigate further. But we also need someone who can operate independently, someone not bound by the normal chains of command." Marcus understood what Williams was implying. He was being asked to go off the books, to operate outside normal protocol, to protect Kate from threats that might be coming from within the very system designed to protect her. "There's something else," Williams continued, sliding a photograph across the table. We've identified at least 3 other operatives who have been working in coordination with Volkov. This isn't a one-person operation. Someone has been running a comprehensive intelligence-gathering campaign against the Princess of Wales for months.
Marcus studied the photographs of 2 men and another woman, all of whom looked professional and unremarkable in the way that only trained operatives could manage. How did they get past our background checks? They didn't need to, Williams said grimly.
They've been operating using legitimate cover identities as journalists, charity workers, and even royal correspondents. Someone with intimate knowledge of the palace's security procedures provided them with access and information. The scope of the conspiracy was becoming clearer, and Marcus realized that Kate had been under systematic surveillance by multiple professionals for an extended period. Every conversation, every private moment, every personal detail had potentially been recorded and analyzed by people who intended to use that information against her. "Sir, we need to brief the princess immediately," Marcus said. "She has a right to know what she's facing." Williams shook his head. "That's exactly what we can't do, at least not yet. If word gets out that we're investigating this operation, the people behind it will simply shut it down and wait for another opportunity. We need to let them continue their activities while we work to identify everyone involved." Marcus felt the weight of the decision being placed on his shoulders. He was being asked to watch Kate unknowingly walk through her daily routine while professional spies documented her every move, building a case that could potentially destroy her reputation and her marriage. "There's more," Williams said, producing another file. "Our technical analysis of the surveillance equipment recovered from Volkov shows that they've been intercepting private communications, including phone calls and text messages between the Prince and Princess of Wales. The violation of privacy was staggering." Marcus thought about the intimate conversations between husband and wife, the private moments of doubt or frustration that every marriage contained, now potentially in the hands of people who would use them for political purposes. "How long do we let this continue?" Marcus asked. "Until we can identify the mastermind behind the operation and gather enough evidence to prosecute everyone involved," Williams replied. "But in the meantime, your job is to stay close to the princess and make sure nothing happens to her. These people have gone to extraordinary lengths to gather information about her, which suggests they're planning something significant." Marcus left the meeting with a secure phone and instructions to report directly to Williams, bypassing normal command structures. As he made his way back to his regular duties, he couldn't help but see the palace differently. Corridors that had once felt familiar now seemed full of potential threats. Staff members he had known for years now looked like possible operatives or informants. Kate was in her private study when Marcus found her, reviewing correspondence and preparing for the following day's engagements. She looked up as he entered, and he saw immediately that she sensed something was wrong. "Inspector Thompson, you look concerned. Is there something I should know about?" Marcus felt the weight of the secrets he was carrying, the knowledge of the surveillance operation, and the betrayal from within her own family. But his orders were clear. "Maintain normal operations while gathering intelligence about the conspiracy. Just routine security reviews, Your Royal Highness," he said, though the words felt like lies on his tongue. "I wanted to discuss some adjustments to tomorrow's schedule." Kate studied his face with the intuition that had made her such an effective royal family member. "Marcus, in the years you've been protecting me, you've never looked quite this worried about routine security reviews. Are you certain there's nothing I should be concerned about?" The direct question put Marcus in an impossible position. His loyalty to Kate demanded honesty, but his orders required secrecy. He made a decision that would define everything that followed. "Your Royal Highness, there are some irregularities we're investigating. I can't provide details yet, but I need you to be extra cautious about your communications and your interactions with people outside your immediate circle." Kate's expression grew serious. "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind that suggests someone is taking an unusual interest in your private affairs," Marcus said carefully. "Nothing that poses an immediate physical threat, but something that could potentially be used to create problems for you politically or personally." Kate was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. When she spoke again, her voice carried the steel that had helped her navigate the complexities of royal life for more than a decade. "How can I help with the investigation?" The question surprised Marcus. Most people in Kate's position would have demanded immediate answers or insisted on additional protection. Instead, she was offering to participate in uncovering the truth about the threat against her. For now, The most important thing is to maintain your normal routine while being aware that your communications and activities may be monitored by unauthorized persons, Marcus said. I'll be increasing my presence in your security detail, and I need you to report anything unusual, no matter how minor it might seem. Kate nodded, but Marcus could see the questions in her eyes. She was intelligent enough to understand that the vague nature of his warnings suggested a threat from within the royal establishment itself. Over the following days, Marcus began implementing his own surveillance operation, watching the Watchers while protecting Kate from threats she didn't fully understand. He identified several additional suspicious individuals in the vicinity of her activities and began building a profile of the network that had been targeting her. The most disturbing discovery came when Marcus gained access to some of the intercepted communications. The conspirators weren't just gathering information about Kate's current activities. They were also investigating her past, looking for any detail or connection that could be exploited or manipulated to create scandal. They had researched her family's financial history, her friendships from before her marriage, her private conversations with friends and confidants. They were building a comprehensive dossier that could be used to construct a narrative of impropriety or scandal, even where none existed. Marcus realized that Kate wasn't just facing surveillance. She was facing a systematic campaign designed to destroy her reputation and potentially force her out of the royal family. The people behind this operation had the resources, the connections, and the determination to pursue their goals regardless of the collateral damage. As Marcus continued his investigation, he began to understand the true scope of what Kate was facing. This wasn't just about gathering information or creating minor political embarrassment. Someone was preparing to wage war against her, using every weapon that modern intelligence gathering and character assassination could provide. The question that haunted Marcus was why? What had Kate done to inspire such a coordinated campaign against her? What threat did she pose that justified the enormous risks and resources being devoted to destroying her? The answers, when they came, would be more shocking and more dangerous than anything Marcus had imagined when he first noticed the suspicious woman in the palace corridor. The conspiracy against Kate reached to the highest levels of the royal family and involved motivations that went far beyond simple jealousy or political rivalry. As Marcus prepared for the next phase of his investigation, he knew that his loyalty to Kate would soon be tested in ways he had never imagined. The institution he had served faithfully for 15 years was about to ask him to choose between his duty to the crown and his commitment to protecting an innocent woman from a conspiracy that threatened to destroy everything she had worked to build. The game was about to become much more dangerous, and Marcus was running out of time to uncover the truth before the people behind this operation moved from gathering intelligence to taking action. Kate's future and possibly her safety depended on his ability to stay one step ahead of enemies who operated from within the very heart of the royal establishment. The revelation came at 3 a.m. through an encrypted message on Marcus's secure phone. Elena Volkov, the Russian operative they had captured, was found dead in her holding cell at the secure facility where she was being interrogated. The official cause would be listed as suicide, but Marcus knew better. Dead operatives couldn't testify about who had hired them. Marcus sat in his car outside his apartment building, rain drumming against the windshield as he processed the implications of Volkov's death. Someone with enough power to eliminate a witness in a high-security facility was behind the conspiracy against Kate. This wasn't just about royal family politics anymore. People were dying to keep secrets. His phone buzzed with another message from Chief Inspector Williams. Emergency meeting. Safe house location 7. Come alone. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place the intelligence services used for meetings that couldn't happen on official premises. Marcus found Williams waiting with 2 people he didn't recognize, a woman in her 50s, with the bearing of a senior civil servant, and a man whose expensive suit and careful demeanor suggested connections to the highest levels of government. Inspector Thompson, Williams said without preamble. Meet Dame Margaret Worthington from the Cabinet Office, and Sir Charles Blackwood from the Palace Private Secretary's office. The situation has escalated beyond our normal protocols. Dame Margaret spoke first, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected national security. Inspector, what we're about to discuss cannot leave this room. The investigation you've been conducting has uncovered evidence of a conspiracy that reaches to the very heart of the royal family and threatens the stability of the monarchy itself.
Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath his feet.
How high does this go? Sir Charles answered, his carefully modulated tone betraying years of diplomatic training. Our preliminary investigation suggests that Queen Consort Camilla has been orchestrating a systematic campaign to gather compromising information about the Princess of Wales. The goal appears to be forcing her abdication from royal duties and potentially her divorce from Prince William. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. The woman he had sworn to protect was being targeted by the very institution she served, attacked by someone who should have been her ally and protector within the royal family. The evidence is substantial, Dame Margaret continued, opening a thick file. Financial records show payments to multiple intelligence operatives, all traced back to accounts controlled by the Queen Consort's private office. Phone records indicate regular communication with known character assassination specialists and media manipulation experts. Marcus studied the documents, his anger growing with each page. Bank transfers, coded communications, surveillance reports that detailed Kate's most private moments. The scope of the operation was staggering in its thoroughness and its cruelty. "What's the end game?" Marcus asked. "Based on the intelligence we've gathered," Sir Charles replied, "the plan is to release carefully edited information that would paint the Princess of Wales as unsuitable for royal duties. Personal conversations taken out of context, financial transactions made to look improper, associations with people whose reputations could be questioned," Dame Margaret added. "The goal is to create a scandal so damaging that public opinion would force her to step back from royal duties voluntarily. With the princess marginalized, the Queen Consort would have a clear path to consolidating her influence over Prince William and the future direction of the monarchy." Marcus felt sick. Kate had dedicated more than a decade of her life to royal service, had raised her children in the public eye, had sacrificed privacy and normalcy to serve the British people, and now someone she should have been able to trust was working systematically to destroy her. "What are my orders?" Marcus asked. Williams leaned forward. "This is where things get complicated. Officially, there is no investigation. The death of Elena Volkov has been ruled a suicide, and any evidence of the surveillance operation has been classified under national security provisions. You're telling me to stand down?" Marcus couldn't keep the anger out of his voice. "We're telling you that your official investigation is over," Dame Margaret said carefully. "However, the Princess of Wales still needs protection from what appears to be an ongoing threat. Your assignment is to maintain normal security protocols while monitoring for any escalation of the operation against her." Marcus understood what they were really asking. They wanted him to continue protecting Kate while ignoring the fact that her greatest threat came from within the royal family itself. They wanted him to look the other way while a conspiracy destroyed someone he had sworn to protect. "And if I refuse?" Marcus asked. Sir Charles's expression grew cold. "Inspector Thompson, you've served with distinction for 15 years. It would be unfortunate if questions arose about your ability to maintain appropriate professional boundaries with the people under your protection." The threat was clear. If Marcus didn't cooperate, they would destroy his reputation and his career, painting him as someone who had become too personally involved with his assignment. It was a perfect trap, designed to silence him while leaving Kate vulnerable to continued attack. Marcus made his decision in that moment, though he didn't share it with the three people watching him carefully. "I understand my orders," he said quietly. "Excellent," Dame Margaret said, standing to leave. "This meeting never happened, Inspector. You've never seen these documents, and you have no knowledge of any investigation into the royal family. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear," Marcus replied. After the three officials left, Marcus sat alone in the safe house apartment, studying copies of the documents he had secretly photographed with his personal phone. They thought they could intimidate him into abandoning Kate, but they had underestimated his commitment to protecting her. Over the next 48 hours, Marcus began implementing his own investigation, operating completely outside official channels. He used contacts from his military intelligence days, people who owed him favors, and who could gather information without going through normal bureaucratic channels. The picture that emerged was even more disturbing than what he had learned in the official briefing. The conspiracy against Kate wasn't just about royal family politics. It was connected to larger political and financial interests that wanted to ensure the monarchy remained traditional and conservative rather than evolving with modern British society. Kate represented change, modernization, and a more accessible royal family. Her popularity with the public and her influence over Prince William made her a threat to people who preferred the old ways of doing things. Destroying her would send a message about the consequences of challenging established power structures. Marcus realized that Kate wasn't just facing a personal attack. She was caught in a larger struggle for the future direction of the monarchy and British society itself. The stakes were higher than he had initially understood, and the people behind the conspiracy were more powerful and more ruthless than he had imagined. His investigation also revealed that the operation against Kate was entering a new phase. The intelligence gathering was complete, and the character assassination campaign was about to begin. Within weeks, carefully orchestrated leaks would begin appearing in certain media outlets, designed to gradually erode public confidence in Kate's suitability for royal duties. Marcus knew he had to act quickly. Once the media campaign began, it would be almost impossible to stop. Public opinion was a powerful weapon, and the people behind this conspiracy were experts at manipulating it. He made a decision that would put his career and possibly his life at risk. He was going to warn Kate about everything he had discovered, regardless of his orders to remain silent. She deserved to know what she was facing, and she deserved the chance to defend herself. But first, he needed to gather more evidence. If he was going to expose this conspiracy, he needed proof that would be impossible to deny or dismiss. The people behind this operation had the power to discredit him and destroy his reputation, so he needed evidence that would stand up to any attempt at character assassination. Marcus began planning what would essentially be a counterintelligence operation against the Queen Consort and her allies. He would use the same surveillance and information gathering techniques that had been used against Kate, turning the weapons of the conspiracy against its creators. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was about to violate every protocol and principle he had been taught in 15 years of Royal Protection Service. He was going to spy on the very people he was supposed to serve and protect. But his loyalty to Kate outweighed his loyalty to the institution that had betrayed her. As Marcus prepared for what would be the most dangerous assignment of his career, he thought about the conversation he would eventually have to have with Kate. He would have to tell her that someone she had welcomed into her family, someone she had tried to build a relationship with, had been working systematically to destroy her for months. The revelation would be devastating, not just because of the personal betrayal, but because of what it said about the institution Kate had devoted her life to serving. The monarchy that she had represented with such dignity and dedication was willing to destroy her to protect its own interests. Marcus knew that Kate was strong enough to handle the truth, but he also knew that the knowledge would change her forever. The innocence and trust that had made her such an effective royal family member would be replaced by a wariness and cynicism that would affect every aspect of her public and private life. But she deserved to know. She deserved the chance to fight back against the people who were trying to destroy her. And Marcus was going to make sure she had that chance, regardless of the personal cost. The game was about to change dramatically. The hunters were about to discover that their prey was more resourceful and more dangerous than they had anticipated. And Marcus was going to make sure that the people behind this conspiracy learned what happened when they underestimated the loyalty of someone who had devoted his life to protecting the innocent from those who would abuse their power. The conspiracy against Kate was about to face its greatest challenge. A loyal guardian who was willing to risk everything to protect the woman he had sworn to serve, even if it meant going to war against the very institution that had shaped his entire adult life. The confrontation Marcus had been dreading finally arrived on a gray Thursday morning in November. Kate was scheduled for a private meeting with Queen Consort Camilla, ostensibly to discuss upcoming charity events. But Marcus had intercepted communications suggesting this meeting was actually intended to deliver an ultimatum: step back from royal duties voluntarily, or face public destruction through the release of compromising information. Marcus positioned himself strategically in the corridor outside Camilla's private sitting room at Clarence House, knowing this would likely be his last opportunity to prevent the conspiracy from achieving its goals. Through careful intelligence gathering over the past 2 weeks, he had assembled a comprehensive dossier of evidence documenting the systematic campaign against Kate. The evidence was damning. Financial records showed over £2 million in payments to various intelligence operatives and media manipulation specialists over the past 8 months. Recorded conversations revealed detailed planning sessions where Camilla and her advisors discussed strategies for destroying Kate's reputation. Electronic surveillance logs documented unauthorized access to Kate's private communications and personal information. Most damaging of all were the draft media releases that had been prepared for distribution to sympathetic journalists and royal correspondents. These documents outlined a coordinated campaign of character assassination that would begin with questions about Kate's suitability for royal duties and escalate to suggestions of personal and financial impropriety. Marcus had copies of everything, stored in multiple secure locations and prepared for release to trusted journalists if anything happened to him or to Kate. It was his insurance policy against the people who had already demonstrated their willingness to eliminate inconvenient witnesses. Through the closed door of the sitting room, Marcus could hear the conversation beginning. Camilla's voice was warm and friendly, giving no indication of the trap she was preparing to spring. Kate responded with her characteristic graciousness, completely unaware that she was walking into an ambush. "Catherine, dear, I wanted to speak with you privately about some concerns that have come to my attention," Camilla was saying. "There are people asking questions about certain aspects of your conduct that could become problematic for the family." Marcus felt his jaw clench. The manipulation was beginning exactly as the intercepted communications had predicted. Camilla was positioning herself as a concerned family member while simultaneously delivering veiled threats. "I'm not sure what you mean," Kate replied, and Marcus could hear the confusion in her voice. "Has someone made a formal complaint about something I've done?" "Nothing formal, of course," Camilla continued smoothly. "But there are whispers about financial irregularities in some of your charitable activities, questions about your relationships with certain donors, concerns about your influence over William's decision-making process." Marcus had heard enough. The accusations were beginning, based on the deliberately distorted intelligence that had been gathered through months of illegal surveillance. He activated his secure recording device and prepared to enter the room. "These concerns are serious enough that some people are suggesting it might be wise for you to consider stepping back from certain royal duties," Camilla continued. "Perhaps focusing more on your role as a mother, spending more time with the children away from public scrutiny." "Are you asking me to resign from royal duties?" Kate asked, her voice carrying a new edge that suggested she was beginning to understand what was really happening. "I'm suggesting that you consider what's best for the family and for the monarchy," Camilla replied. "Sometimes personal sacrifice is necessary to protect the greater good." Marcus made his decision. He knocked once on the door and entered the sitting room without waiting for permission. Both women looked up in surprise, Kate with confusion, and Camilla with obvious annoyance at the interruption. "Your Royal Highnesses," Marcus said formally, "I apologize for the interruption, but there's an urgent security matter that requires immediate attention." Camilla's eyes narrowed as she studied Marcus's expression. She had enough experience with palace politics to recognize that something significant was happening. "Inspector Thompson, this is a private family conversation," Camilla said coldly. "Unless there's an immediate threat to our safety, I'm sure this can wait." "I'm afraid it cannot wait, Your Royal Highness," Marcus replied, producing a thick folder from his jacket. "The security matter directly relates to the conversation you're currently having with the Princess of Wales." Kate looked between Marcus and Camilla, clearly sensing the tension in the room, but not understanding its source. "Marcus, what's this about?" Marcus made the decision that would define the rest of his career and possibly his life. "Your Royal Highness, for the past 8 months, you have been the target of a systematic surveillance and character assassination operation. Every aspect of your private life has been monitored, your communications have been intercepted, and false evidence has been manufactured to support accusations of impropriety." The color drained from Kate's face as she processed what Marcus was telling her. "That's impossible. Who would do such a thing?" Marcus glanced at Camilla, whose expression had shifted from annoyance to barely controlled rage. The operation was orchestrated and financed by Queen Consort Camilla and her private office. The goal was to force you to voluntarily step back from royal duties by threatening to release compromising information that had been deliberately taken out of context or completely fabricated. The silence that followed was deafening. Kate stared at Marcus in shock, then turned to look at Camilla, whose face had gone pale with fury and calculation. "That's an outrageous accusation," Camilla said, her voice deadly quiet. "Inspector Thompson, you're clearly having some kind of breakdown. I think it would be best if you left immediately and sought professional help." Marcus opened the folder and began placing documents on the coffee table between the two women. Financial records showing payments to Elena Volkov and 3 other intelligence operatives. Recorded conversations discussing strategies for destroying the Princess of Wales's reputation. Electronic surveillance logs documenting unauthorized access to her private communications. Draft media releases prepared for coordinated character assassination. Kate picked up one of the documents with trembling hands, scanning the contents with growing horror. These are my personal text messages to William. How did anyone get access to these? The surveillance operation included electronic intercepts of your private communications, Your Royal Highness, Marcus explained gently. Every conversation, every message, every private moment has been monitored and recorded for potential use against you. Camilla stood abruptly, her composure finally cracking. This is fantasy, Catherine. This man is clearly obsessed with you and has manufactured this elaborate conspiracy theory to justify his inappropriate fixation. Marcus had anticipated this response. He produced his phone and played a recorded conversation from the previous week. Camilla's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable, discussing with her private secretary the timing of the media campaign against Kate. The financial irregularities angle isn't strong enough, Camilla's recorded voice said. We need something more personal, something that questions her fitness as a mother and a wife. The public needs to see her as selfish and manipulative. Kate's face went white as she heard the woman she had tried to build a relationship with discussing her destruction in clinical, calculated terms. The betrayal was so complete and so personal that for a moment she couldn't speak. When she finally found her voice, it carried a strength that surprised everyone in the room, including Marcus. How long has this been going on? Based on the financial records, at least 8 months, Marcus replied. Possibly longer, but that's when the payments to professional operatives began. Kate stood slowly, her movements controlled despite the emotional devastation she must have been feeling. When she spoke, her voice was steady and cold. Camilla, I welcomed you into this family. I defended you when others questioned your motives. I tried to build a bridge between you and William, to help heal old wounds and create a unified royal family. Camilla said nothing, her face a mask of cold calculation as she weighed her options. And you've been working systematically to destroy my life and my marriage, Kate continued. You violated every privacy I thought I had, turned my most intimate moments into weapons against me, and tried to force me out of the family I've served faithfully for more than a decade. Catherine, Camilla began. But Kate cut her off. Don't. Just don't. I've heard your voice on those recordings discussing my children, my marriage, my fitness as a mother. I know exactly what you think of me and what you're willing to do to get rid of me. Marcus watched the confrontation with a mixture of admiration and concern. Kate was handling the revelation with remarkable strength, but he knew the full impact of the betrayal wouldn't hit her until later, when the shock wore off and the emotional devastation set in. The question now, Kate said, turning to Marcus, is what happens next. How do we stop this conspiracy and make sure it never happens again? Marcus had been preparing for this moment for weeks. We have enough evidence to expose the entire operation, Your Royal Highness, but doing so would create a scandal that could damage the monarchy itself. The decision about how to proceed has to be yours. Kate was quiet for a long moment, studying the documents spread across the coffee table. Marcus could see her weighing the options. Expose the conspiracy and potentially damage the institution she had devoted her life to serving, or find a way to neutralize the threat while protecting the monarchy from scandal. When she looked up, her eyes held a determination that Marcus had never seen before. Inspector Thompson, I want you to arrange a meeting with Prince William immediately. He needs to know what his stepmother has been doing to his wife and his family. Camilla finally spoke, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades navigating the treacherous waters of royal politics. Catherine, before you do anything rash, consider what's at stake here. The monarchy cannot survive another major scandal. Whatever you think I've done, destroying the institution won't help anyone. Kate's response was immediate and decisive. The monarchy will survive this, Camilla, but your role in it is over. I'm going to make sure William knows exactly what kind of person he allowed into our family and what price we've all paid for trying to trust you. Marcus realized that the confrontation was about to escalate beyond anything that could be contained or managed. The careful balance of royal family politics was about to be shattered, and the consequences would ripple through every aspect of the monarchy's future. As he prepared to escort Kate from Clarence's house, Marcus knew that they had won this battle, but that the war was far from over. Camilla and her allies would not accept defeat gracefully, and the exposure of the conspiracy would create new dangers and new enemies. The loyal guard had succeeded in protecting Kate from the immediate threat, but the cost of that protection was about to become clear to everyone involved. The royal family would never be the same, and Marcus's own future was now completely uncertain. But as he watched Kate gather the evidence of the conspiracy against her, Marcus felt a sense of pride and satisfaction that outweighed any concerns about his own fate. He had kept his promise to protect her, and he had given her the tools she needed to fight back against those who had tried to destroy her. The game was changing, and this time, Kate would be playing by her own rules. The emergency meeting at Kensington Palace took place in the secure conference room where Marcus had first learned about the conspiracy against Kate. This time, however, the power dynamics were completely different. Prince William sat at the head of the table, his face grave as he studied the evidence that had been laid out before him. Kate sat beside him, her composure remarkable considering what she had endured. Marcus stood near the door, knowing that his career hung in the balance based on how the prince received his revelations. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," William said, his voice carefully controlled. "My stepmother orchestrated an 8-month surveillance operation against my wife, hired foreign intelligence operatives to violate our privacy, and was preparing to launch a character assassination campaign designed to force Catherine out of royal duties." "That's correct, Your Royal Highness," Marcus replied. "The evidence is comprehensive and irrefutable. Financial records, recorded conversations, surveillance logs, and prepared media releases all confirm the scope and intent of the operation." William picked up one of the transcripts of intercepted phone calls between himself and Kate, his jaw tightening as he read intimate conversations that should never have been accessible to anyone outside their marriage. "They were listening to everything," Kate said quietly. "Every private moment, every personal conversation, every family discussion about the children. Nothing was sacred to them." William set down the transcript and looked directly at Marcus. "Inspector Thompson, by exposing this conspiracy, you've risked your career and possibly your life. Why did you decide to break protocol and warn Catherine?" Marcus had been preparing for this question since the moment he decided to act outside his orders. "Your Royal Highness, I swore an oath to protect the royal family. When I discovered that the greatest threat to the Princess of Wales was coming from within the royal household itself, I had to choose between following orders and fulfilling my oath. I chose my oath." William nodded slowly, understanding the impossible position Marcus had been placed in. "What did your superiors tell you to do?" "To maintain normal security protocols while ignoring the conspiracy," Marcus replied. "Essentially, to stand by and watch while the princess was destroyed by people she should have been able to trust." Kate reached across the table and touched William's hand. "The question now is what we do next. This can't be allowed to continue, and there have to be consequences for what's been done." William was quiet for several minutes, processing the enormity of what had been revealed and the implications for the royal family's future. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who would one day be king. "Inspector Thompson, I want you to prepare a comprehensive report documenting everything you've discovered. Every payment, every surveillance operation, every violation of privacy, every plan for character assassination. I want it all documented with irrefutable evidence." "Yes, Your Royal Highness," Marcus replied. "What do you intend to do with that report?" William's expression grew stern. "I'm going to present it to my father and demand immediate action. What's been done to Catherine is not just a personal betrayal, it's an attack on the institution of the monarchy itself. If we allow this kind of behavior to go unpunished, it sets a precedent that will destroy the royal family from within." Kate leaned forward. "William, we need to be careful about how we handle this. The monarchy can't survive another major scandal, especially one that involves accusations against the queen consort. The monarchy won't survive if we allow this behavior to continue," William replied firmly. "What Camilla has done is criminal conspiracy, and it needs to be treated as such. The institution is more important than any individual, including her." Marcus felt a surge of relief and admiration. The prince was choosing justice over political convenience, protecting his wife over preserving the comfortable fiction that everything was fine within the royal family. There's something else we need to consider, William continued. Inspector Thompson, you've violated direct orders from your superiors to protect Catherine. There will be consequences for that, and we need to make sure you're protected from retaliation. I understand the risks, Your Royal Highness, Marcus said. I'm prepared to face whatever consequences result from my actions. No, William said firmly. You did the right thing under impossible circumstances. You protected my wife when the people who were supposed to protect her chose to look the other way. That kind of loyalty and integrity should be rewarded, not punished. Over the next week, events moved with surprising speed. William presented his evidence to King Charles, who was reportedly shocked and furious about what had been done in the name of the royal family. An emergency session of the Privy Council was convened to discuss the implications of the scandal and determine appropriate responses. Marcus found himself called to testify before a closed tribunal of senior royal officials and government representatives. Instead of being disciplined for his unauthorized investigation, he was commended for his loyalty and his commitment to protecting the royal family from internal threats. The official response was swift and decisive. Queen Consort Camilla was stripped of her royal duties and asked to step back from public life indefinitely. Her private office was disbanded, and several of her senior advisors faced criminal charges for their role in the conspiracy. The foreign operatives who had been hired to conduct surveillance were arrested and prosecuted under national security legislation. More importantly for Marcus, he was promoted to Chief of Personal Protection for the Prince and Princess of Wales, with expanded authority to investigate and prevent threats from any source, internal or external. It was an unprecedented appointment that sent a clear message about the royal family's commitment to protecting its members from betrayal. But the personal cost of the conspiracy became clear in the weeks that followed. Kate struggled with the violation of privacy she had endured. The knowledge that her most intimate moments had been monitored and recorded by people who intended to use them as weapons against her. The trust that had characterized her approach to royal life was replaced by a wariness that affected every aspect of her public and private activities. William, meanwhile, dealt with the devastating realization that someone he had tried to accept as a mother figure had systematically worked to destroy his wife and his marriage. The betrayal cut deep, affecting his relationships with other family members and his faith in the institution he would one day lead. Marcus worked closely with both of them to rebuild their sense of security and trust. He implemented new protocols designed to prevent any future surveillance operations, established secure communication systems that could not be intercepted, and created a protective environment where Kate could begin to recover from the psychological impact of the conspiracy. The media coverage of the scandal was carefully managed to minimize damage to the monarchy while ensuring that the truth about what had happened was made public. The narrative focused on the swift and decisive action taken by King Charles and Prince William to protect the Princess of Wales and prevent future abuses of power. Public reaction was overwhelmingly supportive of Kate and critical of the conspiracy against her. Her popularity, already high, increased dramatically as people learned about the systematic campaign she had endured and her dignified response to betrayal from within her own family. 6 months after the confrontation at Clarence House, Marcus stood in the garden at Kensington Palace, watching as Kate played with her children on the lawn. The wounds from the conspiracy were healing, but they had left scars that would never completely disappear. The innocence and trust that had once characterized her approach to royal life had been replaced by a more cautious and strategic mindset. But she had survived. More than that, she had emerged from the experience stronger and more determined to fulfill her role as a future queen. The conspiracy that was meant to destroy her had ultimately demonstrated her resilience and her commitment to the institution she served. William joined Marcus in the garden, both men watching as Kate helped their youngest child climb a small tree. "She's remarkable," William said quietly. "Most people would have been broken by what she went through, but she's come out of it even more committed to her duties and more determined to serve the people." Marcus nodded, remembering the devastated woman he had found in the sitting room at Clarence House, and marveling at the strength she had shown since then. "She's the strongest person I've ever had the honor to protect, Your Royal Highness. You saved her," William said, turning to face Marcus. "Without your intervention, without your willingness to risk everything to protect her, Camilla's conspiracy would have succeeded. Catherine would have been forced out of royal life, and the monarchy would have lost one of its greatest assets." Marcus thought about the choice he had made that night when he first noticed the suspicious woman in the palace corridor. The decision to follow his instincts and investigate the threat, despite orders to ignore it, had ultimately saved Kate and exposed a conspiracy that could have destroyed the royal family from within. "I just did my job, sir," Marcus said. "No," William replied firmly. "You went far beyond your job. You risked your career, your reputation, and possibly your life to protect someone who needed protection but couldn't protect herself. That's not just duty, that's heroism." As they watched Kate with the children, Marcus reflected on the lessons learned from the conspiracy and its aftermath. The greatest threats to the people he protected might come from within the institutions they served. Loyalty to individuals sometimes required disloyalty to organizations, and doing the right thing often meant accepting significant personal risks. The royal family had survived the scandal, but it had been fundamentally changed by it. New protocols were in place to prevent future conspiracies. New safeguards protected against internal threats, and new leadership emphasized transparency and accountability over tradition and secrecy. Kate had not only survived the attempt to destroy her, she had become a more powerful and influential figure within the royal family as a result of it. Her experience had given her insights into the darker aspects of palace politics and the determination to ensure that no one else would have to endure what she had gone through. Marcus continued to serve as her chief protector, but their relationship had evolved beyond the traditional boundaries between a royal family member and their security detail. She had seen him risk everything to protect her, and he had seen her demonstrate courage and resilience under circumstances that would have broken most people. The conspiracy against Kate was over, but Marcus knew that his vigilance could never relax. The enemies of the royal family, internal and external, would continue to pose threats that required constant attention and unwavering commitment to protection. The price of security was eternal watchfulness, and Marcus was prepared to pay that price for as long as he was needed. As the sun set over Kensington Palace, Marcus made a silent promise to continue protecting the woman who had become not just his assignment, but someone he genuinely respected and admired. The loyal guard had put everything on the line to protect Kate from Camilla's secret investigation, and he would continue to stand between her and anyone who threatened her, regardless of their position or their power. The story of the conspiracy was over, but the story of protection and loyalty would continue as long as Marcus drew breath and Kate needed defending. Some commitments transcended duty, and Marcus had discovered that his commitment to protecting Kate was one of them.